Hello and welcome to Water Within Astrology. My name is Carly, and as you can see, I am in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, California, and I didn't really mean to sit here with this beautiful palm behind me looking like a giant nature crown, but I think it's so perfect for this Virgo full blood total eclipse full moon that I'm gonna talk to you guys about today. And please excuse the construction around me, the sounds of the city. I wanted to find a more secluded space, but I really wanted the Conservatory of Flowers behind me because this place is really special to me, and I think it's really perfect for the themes of this moon. So, and why this crown is so perfect is because Virgo is the earth priestess. She is the high priestess, and she is the goddess of the harvest. Virgo season comes at the harvest time, and so this is our moon, our full moon in Virgo, happening at 23 degrees. And it's actually coming to you live from a Virgo moon. I have a natal Virgo moon, and it's actually 1 degree off from this full moon. So I am feeling like a high priestess. I am feeling so grateful for my Virgo moon placement, even though for those of you who also have that placement, you might not always feel like that. When you have a Virgo moon, you can sometimes get caught up in the details, caught up in the planning, caught up in overthinking, caught up in perfectionism. And we're going to talk all about that stuff, but right now I'm feeling so divinely protected, and I came here today with one plan, and it was to sit in front of the flowers and to give you all this message. So the rest of my day, I have no plan. I'm going to go just frolic around and see what I find in this magical city. The city that held me in some dark times. I'm gonna do my best not to cry throughout this whole video also, but it's been a very emotional time, as it might be for all of us right now. Full moons are always bringing up emotions. Full moons always bring up endings. They bring up things that we don't normally see. The moon represents our unconscious, and it's fully illuminated. So, and what makes a lunar eclipse so powerful is like it's a super full moon, and it's this moment where the shadow of the earth is blocking the light of the sun on the moon. So we get this moment of shadow, we get this moment of darkness at the peak of the lunar eclipse. And so what that can bring up extra shadow aspects in us that we can finally see out in the open, and it can be quite uncomfortable, it can be overwhelming, it can be all the things, but ultimately it is for our highest good, and we can be thankful for that. And we can use that knowledge as a source of power, and we can understand what's going on more, other than, because when we don't have that information, we're kind of just like flailing around. We're like, what's going on? We know, using the knowledge of astrology, that these energies are affecting us, and they are real, and they are not just in our own head, right? Especially with the Virgo, we can just get in our heads, and we can be stuck there, and we can create all kinds of stories, and we can just feel trapped in our own minds even. So this full moon, I think, is, as all full moons are, and all of the entire spectrum of astrology is working to bring us greater liberation, especially in this earthly plane where we don't always understand what's happening. I told you I'm gonna try real hard to get through this, y'all. We don't always understand what's happening, and the language of astrology can give us clues, and it can give us some clarity, and it can give us words to put to the feelings that we don't always know how to name, the situations that we don't always understand. I promise I am always like this, by the way. This is pretty normal, especially when I travel. You really just get that perspective, and you really just can feel that reigniting of the inspiration and of the passion and of the whatever it is that you need. Traveling can really truly bring that. But anyways, let's talk about how Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is going retrograde, tomorrow. I'm sorry, on the 16th. I'm coming to you today from the 13th of March, and so tomorrow is the full moon. It's actually today where I am now in the world, because now I'm on a Pacific time, but it's happening 2:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I said, it's happening at 23 degrees. The moon's at 23 degrees Virgo. The sun is at 23 degrees Pisces. Full moon is always an opposition between the full moon and the sun. And we also have two planets conjunct the sun. Saturn was actually exactly conjunct on the 12th, which is today. And what that can be is bringing to light and bringing to our consciousness whatever it is that we've been needing to have a reality check with. Whatever it is that we've been needing to remember our responsibilities about. Remember that we're living in a 3D plane. Remember that we live in a time-constrained reality. That time does exist, and that we can bring it all back down to earth, and we can feel like the heaviness if we've started to float away, especially since we still have a stellium of planets in Pisces, 4 planets in Pisces. And if you can think back to 2 weeks ago with the new moon in Pisces, what sort of ethereal, maybe more so, the dreams I've been hearing, everybody's either been having crazy vivid dreams, trouble sleeping, just very active dream state, very active astral work. I actually had a lucid dream, and I don't have those very often, and that's because we still have Pluto here at actually the last degree, 29 degrees of Pisces. And so with Neptune being the ruler of Pisces, it's really got us questioning what reality is. And the Virgo brings us back down to earth. It's a mutable earth sign, so it's a changeable earth sign. One of the reasons that the moon doesn't hate being in Virgo is because the moon is always changing. The moon moves very fast in the sky, and when it's in a mutable sign, it's preferring that, because the moon wants to be able to change and go with the flow and move at its whim and follow the cycles and do what it needs to do to follow that intuitive knowing, to follow that feminine ability to be adaptable, flexible, changeable. So it's really too bad, because the Virgo moon placement really does get a bad rap, and it's very understandable because there's two sides of the coin. On the one side is that high priestess, and on the other side is that overthinking, worrying, over planning, over packing, over preparing, and sometimes to the point where the overthinking stops you from being able to enjoy what it is that you've been planning for, what it is you've even been getting yourself ready for and having all this anxiety about. But so the high priestess, I can't think of a more lunar moon vibe really, is because she's the protector of the earth, and she's the protector of the animals, she's the protector of the forest, of the trees. She knows them, she loves them, and I always think of Artemis when it comes to a Virgo moon, because Artemis is this huntress wizard. Freudian slip-on Adventure Time there. If you know, you know. Huntress goddess, and she has a stag that is always with her, a deer, and she is the archer, and she is the protector. She actually was said to be a virgin her whole life, and she never married, she never was with any men. There's different stories with her and Orion, but she was a devotee of the earth, and she spent most of her time in the forest with the animals, and she had a clan of nymphs that she hung out with as well in some of the stories. So if you want to be a earth priestess nymph, forest nymph with me, I'm accepting applications. And Artemis is also a lunar goddess, so she's that combination of the two. She is represented by the moon, the symbol of the moon, the crescent moon, because this also looks like a bow and arrow like she carries, and she is that earth priestess, that protector, and that guardian. And so I love Artemis. She's my girl. And I feel it's truly a little bit difficult for me to put into words, as it always is. I was born with Mercury retrograde, which is the ruling planet of Virgo. And like I said, Mercury is just getting ready to go retrograde. And that means that it's going to be more difficult for us to communicate. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to start new things. Perhaps we are going to take this time during retrogrades in general to review, to rest, to tie up loose ends, to recharge, to reconfigure, to reframe, whatever it is that we need to do with that RE prefix. So we definitely still have Venus retrograde right now, and she is hanging out at 7 degrees of Aries, and then we have Mercury at 9 degrees of Aries. So they are almost conjunct. They were exactly conjunct yesterday on the 11th, and so Mercury and Venus being conjunct could mean that we're getting some really strong messages, and we're being able to hear them clearer. Maybe there's some aggressive messages with the Aries aspect. Maybe there's some messages about what we need to be trailblazing, or what we need to be starting, what it is that lights us up, whatever it is that we're passionate about, whatever it is that we feel called to be a warrior of, something that we love, that we therefore are willing to fight for. Any sort of messages like that could be coming up, and those are going to be loud because Aries is not is not the quiet one, and we love that about the Aries aspect. So let's move on and let's get to what we're talking about here. This is a lunar eclipse happening on the south node, so all full moons are already about letting go, and I know that it's a broken record and everybody's tired of hearing about letting something go on the full moon, but guess what? You're really going to be letting something go now, and it might not be something that you want to let go of, especially with Saturn there, because like I said, the sun is exactly conjunct Saturn, and it's opposing the moon, so just like the sun is, and we really could be feeling like there's a force coming in that says party's over. Party's over, let's get back to business, let's get back to responsibilities, let's get back to the mundane, let's get back to, and guess what? Virgo rules the mundane, actually. Virgo is ruling over daily habits, our daily routines, what we do consistently every day, how we live our daily lives and how we conduct ourselves daily. And so maybe with the Venus and Mercury, maybe we're getting some daily we're getting some ideas about how to create a more sustainable daily routine that honors our self-worth, that honors ourself, and that helps us to feel more loved and more nurtured and more safe and more pleasure in life, because Venus is about all of those things. So like for me, I'm really trying to get back, like I've been trying to get back into my meditation routine, and this Virgo moon is very much a great time for meditation, great time to start on your daily meditation again if you fell off. And so, things like that, something that we want to consistently do. Maybe it's about changing our diet, maybe it's about changing the way we approach our work. It depends on what house this is in for you. So if you would like me to help you to see what house that's in and to help interpret what's going on at this full moon for you, let me know in the comments below and I will help you, and I would love to offer my services because Virgo is about offering services. It's about what we do in our daily life to be of service. And we maybe are feeling like something's not working, something's not sustainable, something's not, it can't go on this way, it doesn't light us up anymore. With the Venus and Mercury and Aries, like what is it that really lights us up? What is it that really is fun too? Because Aries is very childlike and can be all about having fun too, and can sometimes be more prone to take the easy way out, and there's nothing wrong with that sometimes. So maybe giving ourselves permission to put down the work and put down certain things that just really aren't for us anymore. Like we're seeing that it's just not for us anymore. It's not on that true north, right? Because with everything happening on the south node, we're 4 degrees away from the south node. We are looking north on the north node and seeing that Pisces is there, and we're wondering and feeling, is what we're doing actually in alignment with our spiritual path? If we want to even use that word, is it really making us feel like we're living our lives in a way that's meaningful, in a way that brings us pleasure, in a way that brings us satisfaction. Like, is it something that we can, at the end of our lives, look back on and say, yeah, I really lived, yeah, I really followed that mission that my soul was here to fulfill, because Pisces is about that soul mission. It's about being fulfilled on a soul level and feeling that connection to something cosmic through what we're doing in the mundane. And Virgo can help us turn the mundane into magic, right? We can turn things that we might not always think are magical into something magical. For instance, I spent so much time of my life so far, I think it was like 10 years or something like that, as a house cleaner, and I'm still phasing out of that. I'm still cleaning here and there, but after so long of doing that and feeling discouraged and feeling like I was needing to do more and needing to offer my services in a better, bigger way, in a more meaningful way, when it wasn't the time for me to be done with that, I had to reframe that and to make it magical and to think of it more as like, I'm offering my services as a healer and a cleanser, coming into people's homes and cleaning and removing energetic debris and removing physical dirt, you know, but also at the same time creating more space for people in their homes to create more and to live their lives in a more full way, in a more in a way where they're free from like the anxiety of having to clean. And so I had to like reframe that in order for me to keep going when I knew it wasn't time for me to switch yet. And so it's also just a beautiful time for us to look back with all the Pisces still, to look back and say see how far we've come, and to have true gratitude, and to like have a spiritual harvest, even though we're not in the harvest time as far as like the weather goes in the northern hemisphere, which is where I'm at. We could feel like there's a harvest time for us spiritually right now, and we can see that we've overcome so much and that we have come so far, and we can really be grateful and being appreciative of the journey, even if you know, there's always going to be room for improvement. That's the thing with Virgo, is really understanding like there's always going to be room for improvement. There's always going to be something that needs fixed, that needs cleaned, that needs organized, that needs you know, to go back over and look at the details, to do all that. That's never ending. And there's nothing wrong with self-improvement. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be better, to go to the next level, to, you know, improve ourselves. But at the same time, we cannot let those feelings and that anxiety and that need to fix and need to save and need to you know, whatever, get in the way of us enjoying life and us being beginners, really, because with all this Aries energy, especially as the last North Node we had was Aries, we're still very much beginners in a lot of things right now, because during that last year and a half before the nodal shift in January, which just happened in January, we were being asked to give ourselves permission to be beginners. And so we're still very much beginners, and we're still very much maybe even feeling alone, and maybe feeling like we are needing to be independent and needing to trailblaze for ourselves so that we can pave a better way for whatever wasn't working in the past. And that can really be difficult. It can really be hard. So let's just give ourselves grace and continue to allow ourselves to be beginners at whatever it is that we're starting. And like I said, we still have this Aries energy, so maybe there is some anger still being processed too, because we still have Mars hanging out in Cancer until the middle of April. April 19th, I believe, is when Mars will finally move on in Leo, a sign it really enjoys being in, versus Cancer, where it is now, and it has been for the past 3 months. 3 months, and it went retrograde, so maybe we're really still processing a lot of emotions. It's clear I am, and you know, because Mars is in my first house. I have Cancer rising, and it's been there. So this anger was really getting to me. But it was good, right? It was good for me to like see it. It was good for all of us to finally like maybe reckon with the rage and the anger and whatever emotions, whatever uncomfortable emotions that have been coming up for us. And just know that if that's your story right now, you are absolutely not alone, and it has been a rough time. And I never want to say that it's been a bad or good thing, right? Blanket statements are not really a thing in astrology, because it can always go either way. It's always two sides of a coin, and it just depends on how we react. It just depends on how we use the energy and how we how we take action is one of the only things that we can actually control. Virgo can also be this control freak that just wants to do everything itself because it knows that it can do it itself, so why would I ever ask for help? And Aries can be like that too. With the combination, we could really be struggling with asking for help if we need it, and trusting that others are going to be there for us when we do ask for help even. Our trust as a collective right now has been shattered, and understandably so. It's very difficult for us to trust anything these days. But all the Pisces energy is telling us to trust. It's a huge lesson in trusting. It's a huge lesson in letting go, like throwing your hands up and saying, Jesus, take the wheel, like, as corny as it is. It's really, that's where we're at right now. Ultimately, I believe, is the North Node Pisces is saying it's time for us to trust in the unknown, in whatever we might deem our higher power, whatever we might, feel is cosmically bigger than us, and we can take refuge in knowing that there is a divine plan, and whatever plan that we come up with as simple little human beings that are very powerful inherently, we can humble ourselves, because Virgo is about humility too. We can humble ourselves when it comes to those plans, and we can say, thy will be done, essentially. Whether or not you want to make it biblical, let thy will be done, this divine plan, and trust in that. I promise these are very happy tears. And so let's talk a little bit more about what sort of energy we might be feeling. Like I said, Virgo is a mutable sign, so that's going to help us to be more flexible when it comes to maybe plans changing, especially once Mercury goes retrograde. If any plans change or get uprooted or whatever happens, we can be flexible, and we can learn to lean into that Pisces, go with the flow energy a little bit more. And it's really just going to be an exercise of trust. We're going to be exercising those muscles. And speaking of exercising those muscles, one of the best ways for us when Mercury is involved to get out of the mind and into the body is to create a physical daily habit, is to maybe, start to practice yoga. Like I said, meditation, that's not so much getting physical in the body, it is helping to observe the mind and the fluctuations of the mind. But if you didn't know, yoga, the poses that most people in the West identify as yoga, the asana aspect of the yoga, those poses are actually designed to help us to enter into a meditative state with more ease. They open us up and they help us to remove blockages in the physical body so that we may figure out how to enter a meditative state with more ease. So really just like this divine design is really really beautiful. I am a yoga teacher, so once again Virgo moon is showing, but I cannot recommend that practice enough. And I love yoga because for multiple reasons, but because it is a universal technique. You don't need to be flexible to do yoga. You don't need to be anything other than a human body that can move. And you know, unfortunately for people that are paralyzed or anything like that, there is limitations, but there's eye yoga, even if all you can do is move your eyes, like, and I know there's people that don't have that as well, but there's this tool, right, that we can turn to, most of us, and we can use it when we need to, when we are feeling that overthinking, when we are feeling that worry, whatever it is that's coming up, the mind stuff, the fluctuations of the mind. That's what yoga is designed to help us to observe and calm the fluctuations of the mind. And so yeah. I also want to recommend certain healing techniques right now, really, such as being like in a hot springs or something like that. I think a hot springs is really perfect because it has the water element and it has the earth element, and it's about, you know, it's almost like this earthly throne, right? Like these pools that are naturally forming in the earth that have heat from underground coming through the water and coming in, and there's sulfur and there's, you know, these earth elements in the water that help us to heal, help us to relax, help us to find pleasure, and find ease, and find that it's okay to just be. I think that's a huge lesson for Virgo, is that it's okay to just be. You know, that's a lesson for all of us, no matter what, but especially with the Virgo, is like this high priestess. She has this energy of allowing and trusting, and you know, she will protect and act and be discerning when she needs to be, but most of the time it's just spent in that embodiment, in that like embodiment that doesn't have to speak, that doesn't have to prove itself, that doesn't have to, you know, outwardly really like work to prove anything. It just is, because it is that true embodiment. And I think that's what we're all seeking and working towards for ourselves. And we can appreciate those things about ourselves right now. We can see how much we have leaned into that archetype of the high priestess, and we can see where do we need to improve our embodiment, where do we need to step more fully into that daily embodiment. So this lunar eclipse will actually be visible in Europe, the Americas, Australia, lots of Australia, not all of it, Africa, Asia, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and Antarctica. And so let's backtrack a little bit more to when I was talking about Neptune in Pisces being at that 29th degree. That 29th degree is ruled by Saturn. And like I said, the sun is conjunct Saturn. They're right next to each other. So we really might be feeling that reality check. We really might be feeling that ability to move through the difficult lessons with grace, because Neptune is about that grace, and we can give ourselves that forgiveness when we've had moments that are really difficult and difficult lessons to move through, because that's the Saturn. So just giving ourselves that grace and that compassion and that unconditional love that we wish to see in the world, we can give that to ourselves when we have moments where we truly are being tested and we truly we're moving through difficult lessons, lessons that ultimately are helping us to learn, helping us to grow, helping us to, mature. Saturn is about maturity. So that's what I'll say about that. And at the end of the month, on the 30th of March, we will finally have Neptune moving into Aries as well, joining that little Aries party with Mercury and Venus there. But I think by that time, Venus will have moved on. So, and then Saturn actually will also be moving into Aries as well, because they're together right now. Saturn and Neptune, they're 5 degrees away from each other at this time. And May 24th is when we can see that Saturn is moving into Aries as well. So we have some time there. But just know that's where we're headed. And it's gonna be like hitting the ground running after this kind of lull period where we had Mars in retrograde, Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer, I have been describing it the way, I think it was Kai Pacha that described it, as like being out in the middle of the ocean and flailing around trying to figure out how to get to shore, but actually you're just kind of flailing and you're wanting to take action, but really the Cancer is kind of just asking you to like lean into that uncomfortable feeling, lean into those emotions that are coming up that are necessary and that are asking to be seen. They're asking to be nourished. They're asking to be loved. Becoming the mother that we never had, like that nurturing, motherly energy that we maybe are craving so much. Especially when it comes to the divine masculine in these times, there's nothing more that's needed for the divine masculine right now is compassion and the ability to see vulnerability as a strength as opposed to a weakness, because Cancer is the crab, and when it's out, it's like very, very vulnerable, and when it's, like in its shell, it's really safe. So like we have this tendency maybe to be in our shell. Maybe that's where we've been for that whole retrograde time, and maybe now once all these planets start to move into fire signs, because Mars is going to be in Leo soon, we're going to feel like it's time to come out of our shell, and we're going to feel like it's time to get shit done. It's time to be seen, especially with the Leo. It's time to be not afraid, right? Aries is about courage. Leo is about courage. Just facing our fears, perhaps, because we can let those fears really just rule our lives if we never face them, if we deny them, whatever we've been doing that just isn't working. It's not sustainable. Virgo's about sustainability. She's the earth priestess, so it's no joke that we are like seeing some really unprecedented times with movements shifting in the structures around sustainability and about what's good for the whole, right? Pluto moving into Aquarius was about the power shifting from the corporate and the CEO and the money and the greed, or whatever it's been for the last 15 years in Capricorn. Now it's moving into power to the people, power to the grassroots, power to the community, power to the individual even, because Aquarius is about being an individual and your individual role in the community. And so the power structures are shifting, and they have been, and they will be for the next 15 years, 20 years, for as long as Pluto will be in Aquarius. So let's talk about the healed and the unhealed version of Virgo while I have that on my mind right now. Like I said, the healed version of Virgo is going to be that high priestess. She's very discerning. She is able to separate the wheat from the shaft, right? She's the harvest goddess, so she has a sickle in her hand, this like circular, it looks like a moon knife, looks like a crescent moon, and she cuts the wheat and she keeps the wheat part that's good, and she takes away the part that we don't eat. That's her discernment, and that's what she's doing all the time in everything. And she's this purifying aspect, right? She rules over the intestines and the digestive system. And so maybe if we've been feeling like our diet needs changed because we have been having, tummy problems, it's so interesting how like there's this meme nowadays where it's like, my tummy hurts, but it's like, is anyone actually willing to change their eating habits, or are they just gonna like blanket over with the denial, like, oh, my tummy hurts, and just like make it be part of your personality now, instead of like, maybe let's like shift something so that I don't hurt because I want to enjoy my life. And like our bodies have this divine design as well that we can trust. Like if something is happening in the body and that's not working correctly, we can like hear those messages, Mercury hearing the messages and communicating with our body about what's wrong, what needs changed. Like we can do some deep investigation about what's going on for us and what needs to be adjusted. And it doesn't have to be this thing where we beat ourselves up about it, or we get caught up in the shame, or we get caught up in the guilt, or whatever it is. Like we can just make those adjustments and we can move forward, and we can know that like those adjustments were necessary because my body was telling me something that needed to be heard, and that's it. I made the adjustment because I put my ego away, right? I became humble, and I made the adjustment because it was for my health. It was for my own well-being, for that Saturn, long-term goal, that long-term reward. Yeah, maybe it's uncomfortable at first. If you have to make an adjustment, you have to get used to that. But ultimately, what happens with certain adjustments like that, if we make a decision in our minds to change something and we are like, I'm gonna stick to this, and you make that mental decision, it's gonna be easier to make the adjustment. Because if we're mentally fighting it all the time, and we're mentally like, telling ourselves these stories about how hard it's gonna be, and how how I don't want to do it, and it's uncomfortable, and it's whatever stories we're telling ourselves that are kind of like working against the the flow of what naturally wants to occur, that's gonna mess us up, and it's gonna really take a toll on the change. So like maybe we can just make that decision to change, to stick with that change, to, you know, see what happens. Obviously, like, continue to be discerning. Maybe that change isn't what needed to happen, and so you have to make another change. You have to, you know, backtrack and go again. Like, those retrogrades are gonna have maybe some backtracking involved, and we're just seeing what works for us, and we're seeing, you know, hopefully we're getting more clarity about what it really is that we need to change and adjust in order to have a more higher quality of life. Virgo is about quality as well, and it's about it's definitely quality over quantity, and it's about like I said, purifying. So like maybe we need to go on a fast, maybe, you know, you need to stop eating dairy and meat. Maybe, you know, whatever we need to do to create a temple in our bodies, right? Like they say the body is a temple, and there is a beautiful and cosmic divine trinity between mind, body, and soul. And so, you know, we can maybe see where we're out of alignment if we feel that we, you know, our daily habits aren't lined up with our morals, if our daily habits are not reflecting positive outcomes in our physical body, you know, whatever it is. Like, we just need to like adjust where we're out of alignment, and where we can become more of an embodiment of who we truly are, what we truly believe, and what we are about. You know, what are we about, and how can we just be that embodiment? So the home is associated with the moon, as well as the moon is associated with the body, associated with Virgo, and it's associated with the home too. Like I said, Virgo can be this like cleaning in order to purify the home, in order to purify our space around us. And it can also be like OCD, and it can be like anal or around wanting to have everything in its place and everything a certain way, and like I said, that control freak. So finding the balance there, because there's nothing wrong with having a clean house, but don't let that get in the way of what really is to be done, because like sometimes we can insist on cleaning the whole house before we do what we really want to be doing, which really brings us pleasure, which really like is soul-fulfilling. So figuring out how to balance that, it's always been fun balancing act. And like I said, Virgo can be really like attention to details, and those details can be what makes things even more pleasurable and even more soul fulfilling, right? Like those little details, like sometimes when we leave those out, it's just a little bland, or it's a little you know, whatever. So getting caught up in the details can be really good, or it can be really bad. And so, like I said, also, the Virgo is about service. It's about devotion. There's an asteroid in the cosmos called Vesta, and there is a tale or a legend of the Vestal Virgins. And so Virgo is the virgin, if I didn't say that already. But the Vestal Virgins are these devotional beings that help to remind us of what we are devoted to, and they can be this archetype that we lean into that reminds us, you know, what is it that we're willing to devote our energy towards every single day. And actually right now Vesta is in Scorpio, and if you want to count that as part of the grand water trine in the sky, we have you know, the Mars in Cancer. We have all of the planets in Pisces. We have the Sun, we have Saturn, and we have Neptune and the North Node in Saturn, and so, or I'm sorry, in Pisces, and so that's making a trine with the Mars in Cancer and the Vestal Virgins in Scorpio. So what is it that we're devoted to? What is it that we are passionate about, Scorpio? What is it that we can truly say, like, I live every day for this? It's like, whoa, that's a big one. And yeah, that's the Scorpio intensity too. It's like, I would devote my life to this. I would be, you know, a devotee of this cause. And maybe that's just you. Maybe that's just like devoting yourself to continuing to improve your quality of life in whatever way is necessary, and like being willing to become humble in order to make those necessary changes. So Virgo is this expert analyst, right? Mercury is about the mind and cognitive thought and logical thought, and it's this expert in, you know, scanning the details and finding the details and realizing what most people might overlook because it's so small and it's just like this tiny little detail, but those details can make all the difference. Like I said, for me, it's like when I'm teaching yoga, there's certain cues that seem like really micro adjustments that it feels like, for me, could be the way someone shifts their entire outlook on the pose. It could be that little micro adjustment that they need in order to sink a little bit deeper, or to feel, you know, the stretch deeper, or whatever it is. So it's a really, really beautiful way to use those attention to details and that expert analyzing in a way that is for devotion and to be of service. And the Virgo archetype, like I said, is the high priestess, and she's got this quality of mastery, this mastery of embodiment. And the only way to attain mastery in anything is to practice, and it is to spend tireless hours, perhaps where no one sees any of the work that you're putting in, but you're putting in the work. You know you're putting in the work. And that's another thing that could be related back to that Vesta in Scorpio, is like, maybe all this devotion and all this you know, work is not seen. It is in the dark. It is mysterious, and it is like, you know, happening behind the scenes. Scorpio is like, you know, secrets and the hidden realms and the underworld and this unseen realm. And so is Pisces. It's not always out in the open. It's not always obvious. It's a little bit maybe more abstract. It's maybe a little bit more taboo, and so it's harder to share those certain things in a culture where not everyone understands that the taboos can be, you know, the occult can be some of the most healing aspects of life and parts of our life and culture. Pardon the crows everywhere. They're everywhere. Yeah, I hear you. There's some like really beautiful hawks flying above me. Actually, there's 2 of them circling. So beautiful. Anyways. And this giant crow just landed right here in the tree and is trying to have his voice heard on my video, so we'll let him do his thing. And so let's go ahead and move to the unhealed versions of Virgo too, because once we get through these, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up, because I have my cards and my runes here. You have the Tibetan monks showing up. That's crazy. That's like so beautiful and perfect for the Virgo, actually, is that devotion, that monk life, you know, that living without, right? Virgo can be about maximalism or minimalism. And so anyways, thought that was pretty perfect. I love being in certain situations like this where you just never know what's gonna happen. Hopefully this guy walking up is not gonna disrupt me. But so like I said, the unhealed versions are gonna be that over worrier, that overthinker. It can actually be really interesting to observe Virgos because they can either be really clean and really like about purity and about health and like maybe, you know, like super like workout junkie or whatever it is, or they can be the total opposite and they can like, you know, never clean their home. They can become really hedonistic. And with Virgo, with it being the Virgin, there's this aspect of innocence and you know, purity, and the innocence in Virgo, especially with certain, like wherever house it is or whatever sign, or I'm sorry, whatever other planets are there, there can be this aspect of purity being stolen or losing your purity in some way, in a way that maybe you were it was out of your control. You know, I'm not gonna say the R word, but like that could be a really common theme for people, especially with Virgo moons, you know, or Virgo Venus. There can be this, you know, any of the planets really could be dealing with stuff like that, horrible and terrible theft of innocence and purity. And Virgo can be the victim too. It can really like live in that victimhood forever, and it can not, that can be obviously very toxic and not good for us. So moving from the victim to the victor is going to be a thing that maybe a lot of us are feeling right now with this full moon, this lunar eclipse. So it can be, you know, that the home is a wreck, that there's chaos everywhere outside of us. There's the body might have trouble digesting. You know, we might have a really toxic relationship with our body and how we treat ourselves and how we feed ourselves and, you know, how we nourish ourselves. We can be overly critical and judgmental towards ourselves and to others. I have spoken about this in past videos where I really struggle with judgment because of the Virgo moon, and not to just like blame the Virgo moon, but like I know that's part of what I'm learning is how to not judge myself. Therefore, I won't judge others as much. And I know that's an inside job that starts within. And so overly critical, it can be really bored and uninspired, right? Like stuck in that mundane and unable to turn those mundane things into something more magical, into something more meaningful, into something that we actually feel fulfilled in offering ourselves in that way of service. It can be about outward projections and, like I said, you know, playing the victim and always staying stuck in that and always blaming outside of us instead of like humbling ourselves and realizing like it's an inside job. It can be about, you know, with the embodiment aspect, it can be the opposite, would just be like you're all talk and there's no action, there's no reflection of your embodiment. And with the mastery aspect of being the healed part, it can be this like, you know, naivete where we aren't being discerning and we aren't, you know, using our brains to be logical and realistic and to like, you know, get real about a situation and getting down to earth about a situation. And so the last thing is, you know, the harvest goddess. She's super grateful, and she's seeing the harvest, and she's truly like being present with that gratitude, because she knows that that gratitude is going to be what brings more. And so the flip side of that, the unhealed version of that, would be being stuck in lack. And you know, instead of realizing that this is the harvest and this is like the time of abundance, you know, maybe you're already looking forward, and you're in your head about like, oh, the future, when I know I'm not going to have this anymore, and instead of being present with what is, and what, you know, the abundance that is around you at the harvest time. Really, the Capricorn earth sign can have that lack aspect in a more intense way, because Capricorn is happening at the cold time of the year where there's no food growing, and you know, there is a valid reason to feel a little worried about resources and worried about whatever, but still not letting that take over, not letting that be the star of the show, or be the one in the driver's seat, right? Always coming back to gratitude, because we really do live in a world where abundance is all around us. And I know that might sound really like cavalier to say right now, because I know so many of us are struggling. And I know it's really crazy with, you know, money and prices and the state of the world and what have you. We really can always come back to that gratitude, and we can always remember that the earth provides. The earth can be the source of abundance and purity and purifying and detoxifying, and we can connect to that. We can connect to the earth and find that spiritual connection through the earth. I want to say too, the Virgo Pisces aspect, or the axis, Pisces is like the savior, right? It can be that Jesus, like all healing, all unconditional love, all loving source. And the Virgo, the Virgin, is the Virgin Mary, who brought this being, that spiritual being, into the world, who played that role as just an ordinary woman who was chosen, and then became this magical, you know, mystical, spiritual icon because of her devotion to her faith, and because of her willingness to give up, you know, and put her ego down and say, yes, God, you know, do with me what you will. And she went through, you know, scrutiny and judgment and all this other stuff to do what she did. You know, if you believe the story. If not, it's just an archetype. It's just a story that we can use as an example. But she went through this, you know, really heavy time of scrutiny and blame, and she, you know, was displaced from her home. She was fleeing from the government and, you know, her culture, and anyone who decided that she was a liar or she was unclean or whatever it was. She knew that she was following a divine plan that not everybody understood. She knew that she was needing to be strong. The earth signs are about strength. And there's this, speaking of crying baby Jesus, yeah, she went through what she went through because she was devoted, and she was worthy too. Like, I think all the earth signs are also about worthiness, and they deal with you know, understanding our own worth in order to continue to do the work, because we know that we're worthy, work worthy you know, very similar words. So that's really cool. Virgo is the 6th sign of the zodiac, and when we think about the zodiac as a whole circle, there's 12 signs, and so the first 6, the bottom of the chart, is about our own self-mastery, and it's about our relationship to ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. We're learning all the way through from Aries to Virgo about ourselves and about what we need and our needs and our self-worth and all the things. And then once we get to Virgo, and then we move from Virgo to Libra, Libra is the first of the relationship signs. So once we move from Libra to Pisces, we're talking about our relationships with each other, our work relationships, our romantic relationships, whatever it is, our relationship to money, you know, all these different things. So we're at this precipice here with the Virgo full moon, of learning how to feel autonomous in ourselves in a way that we can now move out of the self-centered and like, you know, whatever it is that's kept us stuck in victimhood or whatever, and we can see the bigger picture, and we can zoom out, and we can start to think about our relationship to the world around us and to the people in the world around us, and how can we be of service to those people, right? The Virgo is all about service and devotion, as I have said already. Let's see. Mastery, the word mastery, because it is associated with Virgo, it's not about perfection. It's about practice, like I said. So showing up every day, and to some that might seem like perfection at the end of the day. Like once we get really good at something, once we have put in that work and practiced, we can become something that appears to be perfect, but nothing ever is. And so just remembering that and knowing that seeking perfection is going to get you nowhere. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for things to get fixed, but that perfection is just not ever gonna be a thing. That perfection actually only comes when we get to the end of Pisces and we get to that death. Not to become super morbid, but like we become perfect when we leave this human vessel, when we leave this earthly realm. We get to go back to whatever that perfect liminal space that we all came from is, you know. Whether that's a physical place or not, I'd say it's more so a state of being, where the slate is wiped clean and we're able to get that perspective, zooming out instead of zooming in, right? The Virgo's like, let's zoom in and see all the details and get the magnifying glass out. And then Pisces is like, let's zoom out. Let's see everything from this spiritual high place that, you know, maybe like an ego death is happening for us right now. That can occur through multiple avenues, but, you know, maybe with the Pisces we're experimenting with more psychedelics, or we're, you know, experimenting with spiritual modalities that take us, like astral projection or whatever it is that, you know, can cause these ego death experiences. And if you've ever had one, you know what they are. And if you don't, and you're having questions, like, you know, you'll know. You will know. And so when we're being overly critical and we're being overly judgmental and we're being control freaks and we're being these unhealed versions of Virgo, we're actually just coming from a place of not accepting things as they are. And so with what's been so crazy in the world lately, you know, it seems so crazy to think that we can ever get to a place of accepting what's happening, but that is truly the only way that we can move forward and to help to improve the situation, is to, you know, one, be grateful for what we have and where we are and how far we've come, and two, to be to come to a state of acceptance of whatever it is that we have decided our ego doesn't like, you know, whatever it is that is making us uncomfortable, and it's making us anxious, and it's making us overthink, and it's making us tense and rigid and whatever else. I like to think of Virgo, this mutable earth, as like clay, and so like this wet clay that you can mold and turn it into whatever you want. It can be whatever you make it. And it starts here. It's an inside job. It starts right here in the mind. It starts with reaching for those tools that we decided are things that help us to get back to a state of equilibrium, back to a state of acceptance and of, you know, peace and inner tranquility. So we're balancing the hard work and the devotion and whatever it is that is our responsibility, Saturn, with resting and being here now, and with really, like, you know, taking a moment to just observe how far we've come, truly, and truly be grateful. So that victimhood, if that's something that you're feeling like you're at and you're feeling stuck there, that victimhood can come from that distrust of, you know, the systems right now, because we do see the systems crumbling around us, and we do see there's big changes, and they're scary, and they're, you know, rocking us to our core, and we can feel like victims there in that situation, but we can take back our power, and we can see what we are in control of. You know, we vote every day with our dollars, and that's the language that the government speaks, right? That's the only language that they speak. So we can control, you know, how we spend our money. It's really beautiful because we're seeing so many like mass protests against corporations. Like, people are not shopping with Amazon, they're not doing Target, they're not doing Walmart as much as they can, just because, like, these are those systems that we feel are so they're the ones in control, right? They're the ones who have all the control. They're the ones who control us. And so when we take back that control and we realize, like, that we don't have to spend our money there, we don't have to you know, and obviously there's situations where we do need things, but like maybe it's that discernment between what we really want and what we really need right now, when it comes to like taking back our power. And so there's a few quotes here that I wanted to talk about, wanted to say for this theme. Felt like really weirdly cosmically divine, but in the airport I got a kombucha, which I was super happy to see that the world is changing and we're living in a world where there's like coconut water and kombucha at the airport now, like, and you know, even in the airport where normally it's just like McDonald's or whatever else was the option to eat, there's like smoothie places everywhere, there's like, you know, vegan options, and there's like a Buddha bowl. I had a Buddha bowl in the airport, you guys, like, it's amazing. So like, we're seeing huge shifts, and it's really beautiful, and we can focus on those, because the, you know, focusing on the bad is gonna get us nowhere too. But so in the airport, when I got my kombucha, there's a little message on the bottle, and it said, "Create without expectations. Your expectations are the only limit." And Virgo has that problem too, right? Like, if it's created a plan about something, that means it's got an expectation about what happens in the plan. It's that control, right? I want to create a plan so that everything goes according to plan, so that I get the expected outcome that I am planning to have. And so like dropping expectations is a huge thing, and that is about, you know, trusting, like leaning into that divine trust and leaning into that divine plan. So thanks whoever offered that quote to the GT's community. And then I have one more too that is relevant too. And for that one, it's like create without expectations. That Pisces energy, that sun and stellium, that wants to be creative. It's all the water signs are about creativity, and they're about you know, feeling inspired in spirit in order to create. Like we're creating through that divine inspiration, and we are bringing whatever this ethereal like idea or creative idea that we have, and we're bringing it into the world. We're giving birth, if you will, to the to the divine, just like Mother Mary, right? We're creating that birthing energy is creativity, right? And that's that Kundalini energy. So tying that in with that first one. And then the second quote is from my Bible, The Women Who Run with Wolves. And shout out to the tribe out there who also knows what I'm talking about and how divine that book is, and how much that book has changed my life. Truly. It says, art is not meant to be created in stolen moments only. So like giving ourselves that permission to create, to give ourselves that permission to make time to create, to be imperfect, to create something that maybe is not good as far as like what we consider to be good art, you know, like what the crazy concept in itself is like, you know, art being good enough. Like, what are you talking about? It's art. If it makes you happy to create it, then it did its thing. It did its part. That's its purpose. Like, you know, art's purpose is to bring pleasure, and it doesn't matter who else is, you know, gaining from that. Like, if it makes you happy to create it, then that's it. That's the end. You know. And so it's not meant to be created in stolen moments only. Art is not meant to be created in stolen moments only. Making that time. And art doesn't have to be anything special, you know, it doesn't have to be painting and drawing and what you might think of as art. It could be music, it could be poetry, it can be, especially with this Virgo, Mercury energy is very much like written word, spoken word. It can be, you know, this is my art right here, right now. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to get to speak to whoever's listening. So thank you for listening if you're still listening to the end here. And so just, giving ourselves that permission to make space for what makes us happy, make space for what truly lights our soul up, for whatever that creative force is that wants to come through, that we are on a soul mission to unlock and to discover and to work with and to devote ourselves to. So I have my cards here, believe it or not. I walked a long way with a really heavy bag so that I could give you all a card. And so it's a card for me too, obviously, but I have my unicorn oracle deck, which is not one that I usually use for these videos because they come with these really beautiful meditations. So I am gonna do the whole thing here. If you are done with this video and you don't want to do that, I totally understand. But so these cards are really special, and I picked the unicorn deck because unicorns are associated with purity, and they are that, like, they're like the virgins of animals, you know, like they're like the most beautiful, the most sought after, like they're rare, they're like, you know, they're very prized possessions, you know, as far, if you were like a hunter and you were to find a unicorn, you would be like, finding this prize, the way that we view virgins in this day and age. And I just want to say that if you are someone who has struggled with the whole virginity thing in our culture, you know, if you're anything like me, where there was a lot of pressure to be a virgin until you were married, and if that wasn't the case, and you felt a lot of shame and felt a lot of guilt and felt a lot of like judgment, just know that there's nothing in the world that can ever truly steal your purity from you. Yes, things can happen, and it's awful and it's horrible, but there is always an opportunity for us to reclaim our purity, and that is something that no one can ever take from us, not truly. So just for anyone out there who's there. So let's go ahead and draw this unicorn card for this full moon in Virgo, this lunar blood moon eclipse happening at this most auspicious time here on Earth, 2025, March 14th, 2025. What card do we need today? Okay, beautiful. Okay, so beautiful, I'm gonna cry. This card is called Access Your Gifts. And this is so perfect. It says explore your treasure chest. That Vesta and Scorpio go, because Scorpio rules the underworld, right? And that seems really dark and scary and whatever. Scorpio and Pluto also rules the precious gems that are hidden under the ground. And when we choose to go on that underworld journey, we're going on a quest to retrieve the hidden gems and to retrieve the parts of us that maybe we've repressed, maybe we've buried, you know, maybe, you know, whatever it is, we're retrieving those things. We're going on an underworld journey for a reason. We're not just going because we like to suffer. Like, no, we're going because we know there's something there that we need to retrieve and that we need to reclaim. So explore your treasure chest and accept who you truly are. It can be really difficult to accept who we are because we want to perform for the world. We want to, you know, wear our masks, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest things about this Pluto movement, for us generationally and culturally. We're going to be dropping our masks, because Capricorn has this tendency, you know, like a CEO, like who are you when you are working? Who are you when you show up to work? And what sort of masks do you feel you have to wear in order to play the role you have to play when you're working? And Aquarius is about dropping that mask and becoming authentic and becoming who you truly are, letting your freak flag fly, and, you know, realizing that that is powerful and that is admirable, and that is also can be very, like, it can lead to success, right? Because Capricorn's all about like this pursuit of success and pursuit of creating a legend for itself. This like desire to become immortal almost. And so that's the treasure. It lies within those vulnerabilities. It lies within those parts of us that maybe we are ashamed to bring forth, or that we do consider to be weird, or whatever it is. Like, that can truly be our superpower, and we've spent all this time like pushing it down, or spent all this time like hiding it from the world, whatever. That could be the medicine that people need more than ever. Like, I know me crying on this video a lot. That's my thing. It's like accepting that I am a truly strong feeling person. Like, I have always had that as part of me and who I am, and it's always felt like, you know, something I needed to hide away and to water it down and to, you know, whatever. And I know that's exactly what people need right now. It's what I need, is like that permission to feel deeply, that permission to cry and to be vulnerable and to show the world that, like, I'm not perfect and I am not this like you know, person that's super strong, and like, you know, the mask I wear, especially with a Scorpio sun, is like this tough, like strong, independent, and like, you know, maybe even a little bit scary in order to, like, you know, intimidate people so that they don't hurt me, you know, whatever it's been. And you know, like really accepting who I am, and yeah, realizing like that comes with some things that culturally are not always welcome, and that's okay. It's really okay, and it's really a gift. It's where my treasure lies, and so I'm super grateful. I always said after I got off my antidepressants in my teenage years, like, I would rather feel everything as intensely as I do rather than not feel it all. So I continue to make that choice every single day. I continue to be grateful for my ability to feel the entire spectrum of human emotions. I did get another card here at the bottom of the deck. It's called the Caring Community card. And for me, you know, just for what's been coming up for me mentally is like really wanting that deeper connection with my friends and with my partner, and with, you know, like feeling like there is a reason for me to feel like I need to protect myself all the time, you know, like with strangers, like, you know, don't make eye contact, and like just the culture, like you can get caught up in that, and like realizing like where I need to put my weapon down and where I need to like open up a little bit more to the possibility that anyone could be my friend. Like, maybe I'm the one who stops myself from connecting with people because I've got this story in my head that no one wants to be friends with you, like just stay quiet and just stay, you know, stay separate. And it's like reframing that story that I'm telling myself and being like, but what if everybody actually just wants to be your friend and you're the one who's withholding that from them, you know? Like, and I know that comes from like a story of like, I need to start telling myself more, I am a good friend, and people are lucky to be my friend, and so why would I deprive anyone of that? Especially my friends that I already have, like trusting that they are my friends and that like I do have something to offer, and vice versa. Like I have so much to learn from other people, and from the ones that are closest to me are truly like the most divine teachers and reflections. So, caring community, participate and belong, enrich your life. And I actually got this caring community card yesterday too, and I was here yesterday. I'm in Golden Gate Park, and I'm still here again. And this place is a portal. If you have not been, if you know, want a recommendation for a beautiful day in San Francisco, just all you gotta do is go find yourself the Golden Gate Bridge, and that thing is a portal. It's amazing, and I will go ahead and end it here. I have my runes here, but I don't have my cheat sheet, so we're going to skip that because I'm still learning the runes. This is helping me to learn them. And so, if you have not already liked and subscribed to this channel, please do so. If this video resonates with you, I would love it if you could send it to someone who you think it also might resonate with. This one went on a little bit longer, and shocker, it's a Mercury moon about to go retrograde. I got a lot to say before it's time to be quiet and to be resting and to be relaxing. But so, yeah, I just want to thank you all again so much for being here if you listened all the way to the end, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. We're gonna have a new moon in Aries, and that's going to be a partial solar eclipse in Aries. And so starting now to think back to what it was like for us at that really total solar eclipse in Aries, April 8th of last year, and thinking of those themes and knowing that this is like kind of the closing lunation of that cycle. And so maybe we're really, like, we've been isolated and we've been asleep, or I'm sorry, alone, and now we're seeing where we're at with that isolation and seeing where we're at with that maybe hyper independence. But anyways, not to get into that too much before we're there, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and thank you all so much.